As we embark on this journey of learning and collaboration, let's keep our minds open and our curiosity alive. A very warm welcome to the 16th International Research Conference of General Sir John Kotelawala Defence University, Sri Lanka, under the theme of Achieving Resilience through Digitalization, Sustainability and Sectoral Transformation. Today, we gather here to witness the technical sessions of the Department of Medical Laboratory Sciences, Faculty of Molecular Science. On behalf of the organizing committee, I warmly welcome the distinguished guests, senior and junior academics, presenting authors and students. Before we explore the enlightening presentations and engaging discussions planned for today, let's rise up for the university anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now commence today's proceedings by inviting Dr. C.B. Ranavira, the Head of Department of Medical Laboratory Sciences, to the podium to introduce the Chairperson of the session, Professor Inoka C. Perera from the Department of Zoology and Environment Sciences, University of Colombo. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. We warmly welcome you all to the 16th International Research Conference. And it is my great honor and pleasure to introduce Professor Inoka C. Perera as the Chairperson of this everyday session. Professor Inoka C. Perera is a molecular biologist who is attached to the Department of Zoology and Environment Sciences, University of Colombo, and he has nearly 20 years of teaching and research experience. He teaches a diverse array of subjects with a focus on molecular mechanisms in biology. He majored in zoology at the University of Colombo and obtained his doctoral degree in molecular biology and biochemistry from Louisiana State University, USA. Currently, his research focuses on finding novel drug leads to combat tuberculosis and other pathogenic bacteria. He also studies the molecular dynamics of protein interactions to understand some of the fascinating mechanisms behind the actions. Further, he contributes to projects in nanotechnology, ecotoxicology, and synthetic drug designing with his expertise in cellular and molecular biology. Furthermore, his research group studies zoonotic viruses of mammalian and birds. Apart from his teaching and research, he acts as a career guidance counselor, an academic advisor, and mentors a number of undergraduate and postgraduate students in their dissertation research. She's a very well respected and well known research scientist. It's a great pleasure to have you here, sir. And thank you very much. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shantha, for that introduction. All right, so it's nice to see so many young scientists, some familiar faces also here today to present their research findings they have done and their achievements. So this session has quite a variety of abstracts. I just had a glance through the titles. So starting from antibacterial properties of various compounds to some of the kind of areas that I am not familiar with also. So it's nice. So I hope everyone will enjoy this session. So the presenters who are going to present their research would get about 10 minutes to present their work, and at 8 minutes there will be a bell rung to indicate 2 minutes left for you to finish, right? And at 10 minutes there will be 2 bells, right? And we'll get about 3 minutes to discuss, to answer the questions that are coming from the audience. All right, so this session has 2 judges to find out who will do the best job in presenting their research. So the 2 judges are Dr. Niroshima Vithanagi, who is a senior lecturer from the Department of Medical Water Sciences from the University of Sri Lanka, and Dr. Amila Abhisekara, a senior lecturer, Department of Pharmacy from the KD, Allied Health Sciences. So shall we, will the judges take their seats so that we can invite the first presenter? And it's nice to see so many have contributed to all these research work. So I'm not going to read out all the names who have contributed to the work. I will just read out the title of the first presentation and then the presenting author's name. So the first presentation is titled In-vitro Antibacterial Activity of Punica granatum, bark used as Ayurvedic medicine in Sri Lanka. So it will be presented by SGC Sanchethana.
So very good afternoon to everyone. Before I start my presentation, I would like to thank the reviewers and selection panel of IRC facility in our class. So I'm SGC Sanchethana, the presenting author of Hepatitis C. I'm an undergraduate in Medical Science Department of Ayurvedic Medicine. So I'm very happy to stand here with you, and I appreciate your patience and attention for me. So the topic of my presentation is Antibacterial Activity of Punica used as Ayurvedic medicine in Sri Lanka, and these are the goals of research, and these are the contents of my presentation. Okay, let's begin. So first, I would like to tell you what is the importance of our research and why we chose Punica bark for study. So nowadays, antibiotic resistance is a huge medical problem. So that's why we need to find novel antibiotic agents or antibacterial agents to overcome this issue. So the plant-based materials that can be used to overcome this issue because they are easily obtained, less expensive, safe, efficient, and rarely side effects. So, although Punica granatum, which we call Delum, is a widely used Ayurvedic medicinal plant, and several parts of plant such as bark, leaves, fruits, and seeds have been used to make phytomedicines that are important for that has many important effects of antibacterial effects. And here I have mentioned some pharmacological properties and uses of Delum bark. Hope you can see it on the slide. And among those properties, we chose antibacterial activity of Delum bark for research. And Delum bark is commonly used in Ayurvedic medicine, but due to geographical locations, the phytochemical properties may be differ and they are not scientifically proven. Also, Staphylococcus aureus and Pseudomonas aeruginosa are the main microorganisms in our study. which were commonly caused in skin and bone causing infections. So the purpose of our research is to find antibacterial properties of Punica granatum bark against Staphylococcus aureus and Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Talking about the objectives, the general objective was to investigate the in-vitro antibacterial activity of lemon bark used in Ayurvedic medicine against Staphylococcus aureus and Pseudomonas aeruginosa in Sri Lanka. These are the specific objectives. They are to determine the in-vitro antibacterial activity of lemon bark using Inoka diffusion assay, and to determine the minimal in-vitro concentration of lemon bark using broth macrodissection. So here I have mentioned the conceptual framework to give a brief idea about the methodology. We did an experimental study which was conducted in the KI research laboratory. We took only dried lemon bark samples, wet, untreated, fungal contaminated samples were removed, and Staphylococcus aureus and Pseudomonas aeruginosa 80 cc microorganisms were taken for study. Talking about the procedure, there were 4 steps, and all the assays were done according to CLSI guidelines with sterile conditions. I'll explain those steps in upcoming slides. In data analysis, all the assays were done in triplicate and analyzed the mean and SD values. Okay, let's discuss about the main 4 steps in our procedure. First one is the sample collection and authentication. All the samples were collected from Colombo district and authenticated them from Ayurvedic Research Institute in Maharagama. The second step was processing and sample preparation. We used the decoction method, and the sub-step of that method I have included in the slide, hope you can see it. And the third step was egg diffusion method. 24 hours old subcultures were taken and suspension was formed for each organism was standardized using 0.5 McFarland standard, and then the MHA plates were inoculated and 4 wells were seeded. After that, 2-fold serially diluted extract was carefully added into the labeled wells. Parallel with test extract, we took gentamicin as the positive control and sterile distill water as the negative control. Then the plates were incubated at 37 Celsius for 24 hours. After overnight incubation, we measured the salt dilution. These are the agar plates for agar method. And the final step is minimum inhibited concentration assay. So the test extract and the positive control was serially diluted with nutrient broth to give the final concentrations. And the inoculant preparation was done as the same in agar method. Then the tubes were inoculated with each organism and incubated them at 37 Celsius for 24 hours. After overnight incubation, the lowest concentration that showed no visible growth was taken as the MRC. Now let's discuss about the results. In here you can see in the table the concentrations and the inhibition zones of the agar method. So these both pie charts show that if the concentration decreases, the inhibition zones also getting decreased, and the maximum inhibition zone appeared for Staphylococcus aureus is 23.33 millimeters, and for Pseudomonas aeruginosa it is 17.67 millimeter at 200 milligram per milliliter concentration. Here you can see clear inhibition zones for agar method for both tested organisms. These are the results that we obtained for MIC assay. So this pie chart indicates the mean MIC values of 44% for Staphylococcus aureus and 56% for Pseudomonas aeruginosa. And all the MIC results were agreed with inhibition zones of agar method. Now let's discuss about the major findings of our research. First, the agar diffusion assay was used as a screening test and the MIC assay was used as a confirmatory test. So all the results were proved that lemon bark had a significant antibacterial activity against both tested organisms, and all the results were obtained were positive for 200 milligram per milliliter concentration for both tested organisms. And lemon bark had a higher antibacterial activity against Staphylococcus aureus compared to the Pseudomonas aeruginosa, but the inhibition zones were not as significant as the standard antibiotic because gentamicin contains only pure compounds. So these both assays were used because it facilitates to compare the analysis, and moreover various other methods like maceration also can be used for this study, but we chose the decoction method because it is a simple and low time consuming method, and concentrated extract with water soluble compounds can be taken, and the extract has long shelf life. Even though other extract solvents can be taken for these kind of research, but we took only aqueous extract because it has many advantages such as cost effectivity, less skin irritation, ability to dissolve many kinds of molecules, and less toxicity compared to the other organic solvents. So as a conclusion, the antibacterial activity of delum bark was confirmed after performing both assays. So I conclude that delum bark has antibacterial properties against Staphylococcus aureus and Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Talking about the implications, it can be used to treat and develop novel antibacterial formulation against both tested organisms, and pharmaceutical products, cosmetics, and Ayurvedic products can be manufactured with a low cost, harmless, and skin protective. Here I have mentioned some future recommendations that could be useful for future researchers. They are performing toxicity and quality analysis for the delum bark extract, and studying about the pharmacological and chemical properties of the delum bark extract, and can use other organic solvents for the extraction process, and further studying and investigation on therapeutic applications and industrial approaches. So these are the references that we use for our research study. And I would like to thank our main supervisor and co-supervisor and the Care University for providing the grant and research facilities to conduct our study, and anonymous reviewers for their comments for the initial abstract. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanchethana. So it was an interesting presentation. So now it's open for questions and comments from the audience.
In Ayurvedic medicine, some eye infections and hysteria-like disease condition, delum bark is used in Ayurvedic medicine.
Any other questions from the audience? So you have mentioned that you used delum and then you got it authenticated. So this particular variety that you used, do you have a name for that? Or because delum comes in different varieties, right? Different colors, and so I would assume their phytochemical constituents are also different. So the variety that you used for your research, would you be able to comment on that?
Actually, I know about very much the varieties and
So in your authentication of the voucher specimens, they have just mentioned it's delum.
yeah.
And there is no mentioning of the of a particular variety of it.
No.
It would be good to actually note it down, because I think there's some indication in terms of, because if you're suggesting this to somebody else to use, you might have to tell them which variety to use also, right? Any other questions from the audience? Alright, so in the absence of questions, shall we thank Sanchethana for that presentation and invite the next presenter. So the title of the next presentation is In-vitro Antimicrobial Properties of Plant Mixture Against Common Microbial Strains Causing Urinary Tract Infections and Cytotoxicity Determination Using Brine Shrimp Lethality Assay. So this will be presented by Jayasuriya. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Jayasuriya. My project is a study of in-vitro antimicrobial properties of plant mixture against common microbial strains causing urinary tract infections and cytotoxicity determination using Brine Shrimp Lethality Assay. First of all, I would like to do the introduction and talk about the background of the study. I know all of you are known about the urinary tract infections. Urinary tract infections are one of the most common bacterial infections worldwide, and it can lead to the bacteremia and septicemia also, and it is one of the major causes of morbidity and mortality. Uropathogenic Escherichia coli is the most prominent bacterial strain who causes both complicated and uncomplicated UTIs, and Pseudomonas aeruginosa are mostly associated with the complicated UTIs. In recent years, antibiotic resistance is the major tragedy in worldwide, so introducing new drugs are urgently needed. And according to the WHO, 80% of the world population using traditional medicines for their primary healthcare needs. And Sri Lanka is the significant source of the medicinal plants. Currently, in Ayurvedic and traditional medicines, using medicinal plants for treating many diseases including UTIs, but they have less evidence about their antimicrobial properties and their cytotoxic effects. So we hope to develop new treatment methods and determine their actual antibacterial activity and their cytotoxicity activities. According to the guidance of traditional and Ayurvedic medicinal practitioners and according to the thorough literature review, we select 9 medicinal plants as you can see in the table. They are Phalanthus emblica, Ostium tenuiflorum, Terminalia shebula, Syngico officinale, Tribulus terrestris, Asparagus falcatus, Bohemia diffusa, Tragia involucrata and Eva lanata. In the table you can see there are common Sri Lankan names also. And here you can see the pictures of that plants. Aim of the present study is to develop plant-based treatment option for treat uropathogenic E. coli and Pseudomonas aeruginosa infections and to determine its synergistic effect against the selected organisms and cytotoxicity determination using brine shrimp lethality assay. Now I'm moving on to the methodology. All the plants and plant-based materials were freshly harvested and collected, but one plant, Tribulus terrestris, collected from the Chilla coastal area. Here I mentioned the exclusion criteria of my research. They are plant with infections, plant dried with direct sunlight. Other part of the accepted selected parts and commercially available plants are rejected. Plant authentication is the important thing in these plant-based researchers. All the selected plants were authenticated by the Botany Division of Bandara Memorial Ayurvedic Research Institute. Here you can see we selected 2 antimicrobial assays, AWMKK diffusion assay and broth dilution assay for our research. And here you can see the selected microorganisms, Pseudomonas aeruginosa and E. coli 80cc strain and Pseudomonas aeruginosa and E. coli 1 UTI positive pathogenic strain. Now I am moving on to the plant mixture preparation. Plant mixture was prepared using the 9 medicinal plants. Before preparation of the plant mixture, we determined their antibacterial and cytotoxic effect separately according to that results. And according to the guidance of our supervisors, we prepare plant mixture with Phalanthus emblica, Terminalia shebula, Tribulus terrestris, Bohemia diffusa, Tragia involucrata, Eva lanata, Ostium tenuiflorum, Syngico officinale and Asparagus falcatus according to the ratio I mentioned in the presentation. Now I am moving on to the diffusion assay methodology section. All the selected plant materials were collected and they are dried using hot air oven at 25 to 30 degrees of Celsius, and they are grinded, and we prepare the plant mixture according to that ratio, and we prepare the methanolic extract using 99% of methanol. After that, we prepare the stock solution using 50% DMSO. Then we done the diffusion assay. For that, we use gentamicin as positive control and 50% DMSO as the negative control. Here you can see the mean zone of inhibition and relative percentage of inhibition calculations. Now I talk about the minimum inhibitory assay, broth microdilution assay. For that we use Muller-Hinton agar broth and we use 2,4 dilution. 100 microliter bacterial suspensions are added for each tube and incubate them for the 24 hours. and observe their turbidity and determine their minimum inhibitory concentration. Here you can see the methodology of the brine shrimp lethality assay. We prepare the serial dilution as in the flow chart, and after that we add 10 hatched Nopli of Artemisia salina brine shrimp or brine shrimps for each tube, and after 24-hour incubation in room temperature, we calculate the motility percentage and LC50 value using graph-fed Grissom software. So now I'm moving on to the result and discussion section. Here you can see plant mixture show the antimicrobial effect against the E. coli and Pseudomonas species, and plant mixture show the higher antimicrobial effect against the Pseudomonas species than the E. coli, and it shows highest antimicrobial effect against the Pseudomonas aeruginosa ATCC strain. Here you can see the well diffusion assay pictures and relative percentage of inhibition chart in the right side. Against the Pseudomonas aeruginosa species, plant mixture show the highest antimicrobial effect more than the gentamicin positive control. And when I talk about the rough microdilution assay result, plant mixture show the lowest MIC value against the Pseudomonas aeruginosa ATCC strain, so it's through the well diffusion assay results. Here you can see the brine shrimp lethality assay results, motility percentage and LC50 value. Its LC50 value is 8.69 microgram per milliliter. Here you can see the chart also. These chart was prepared using graph-fed Grissom software. According to the Meyer's criteria, if LC50 value greater than 1000 microgram per milliliter considered as non-toxic. According to that, this plant mixture has toxicity effect against the Artemisia salina organism, but this brine shrimp lethality assay is the preliminary toxicity assay, so we need future toxicity studies for determining their actual toxicity. As a conclusion, the result showed the result of the methanolic extracts of plant mixture showed the significant antimicrobial activity against selected plant mixture, and plant mixture has the highest antibacterial effect against the Pseudomonas aeruginosa species. But we can see the slight difference between the ATCC strains and the pathological strains. Pathological strains antibacterial effects is lower because of their I think because of their resistant patterns. The result of the present study evidently support for the traditional and Ayurvedic usage of these medicinal plants for treat UTIs, and it's paved the way for the new treatment development. Plant mixture has significant toxicity to the brine shrimp lethality assays, but it's the preliminary toxicity assay, so we need future toxicity studies for determining the actual toxicity and for the dose determination. As recommendation, we can use microfilters for the plant sterilization process, and we can introduce separate rotary operator for to prevent the cross contaminations, and we can introduce LSR method for increased sensitivity and specificity, and scientific validations and clinical trials will be strengthened the present study, and we need future investigations done for the plant mixture for develop new treatment method and to dosage form development and for determine the suitable administration form. Here you can see the references I used for my study. Finally, I acknowledge to my supervisors, my research group members, KIU laboratory staff and KIU undergraduate research grant. That's all about my presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that interesting presentation. It's open for discussion now. Questions from the audience?
Informative presentation. I just wanted to know how you have taken the plant extract ratios.
Madam, we first of all we check the antimicrobial effect and cytotoxicity effect of the plant separately.
Individual, yeah.
Madam, yes. We separately check that their antimicrobial effect and effect with the well diffusion assay and MIC assay and MBC also, and we check the cytotoxicity assay with the brine shrimp lethality assay. And after we look at that results and discuss with our supervisors, and we finally get the decision for that for the ratio.
adjustment.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Why did you use EMS as a negative control? Because we have EMS for anything.
For the most of the well-diffusion assay and these plant-based researchers, DMSO 50% DMSO is used as the negative control. So in the previous literature also, that is the universal negative control as the literature.
So these are water extracts, right? These are water extracts?
Methanolic.
Methanol. So you freeze dry it, then you
No, madam, we request for the Colombo University for the freeze drying. They said only they can freeze dry the aqueous extract only. So we are unable to freeze dry them, but we done the quality control method for check their sterility. Each and every day we run the sterility plate and check their sterility, madam.
So did you get like a powdery residue or did you get any oil?
We get the powder after the methanolic extract. Then we redissolve it into 50% EMSO and prepare the 50 milligrams per milliliter stock solution.
Not use EMS.
Yes.
The question was beginning in my mind also. Any other questions from the audience? So this, just out of curiosity, so this is not a reported mixture of plants.
Yes, this is a new novel research, not as previous research for this plant mixture preparation about not.
Yeah, you might have mentioned that specifically because usually for these you use Ayurvedic or traditional.
They use these plants separately for treat UTIs. The selected parts, most of the plants use their barks only, not barks, roots only. But they didn't prepare the plant mixtures for treating UTIs. So we hope to develop the new treatment method with combination of these all plants.
Alright, so we wish you best of luck.
Thank you.
Alright. Alright, so the next presentation is titled Antimicrobial Activity of Flogia leukocytes. Did I pronounce it correct? Leucopyrus, wild, that is caterpillar leaf extracts against some common milk pathogens. Over to you, JMKD.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jayasuriya and I am going to present under the topic of antimicrobial activity of Flogia leukocytes wild, that means caterpillar leaf extract against some common milk pathogens. This is the content of my presentation, and I would like to give a brief introduction regarding our research topic and its background first. So, as you know, milk is an excellent medium for the growth of many kinds of pathogenic microorganisms because of its nutritional value. And that's why milk industry, that means dairy industry, uses many kinds of preservatives to extend their shelf life and to prevent these kind of pathogenic, the growth of these kind of pathogenic microorganisms. Chemical preservatives are widely used in the modern dairy industry, but some of them can be toxic and can be cause long-term side effects in the human being. So, this is an effort to try natural antimicrobial as a preservative for the milk preservation. Sri Lanka is abundant with many herbal plants. Caterpillar, that means Flogia leukocytes wild, is one of the plants that is found in Sri Lanka with non-antimicrobial activity. So that's why we selected this plant to evaluate its antimicrobial activity first and then apply this natural antimicrobial activity for the milk preservation. So the objective of our study was to evaluate antimicrobial activity of methanolic Regia leucophytus wild plant extract against some common milk pathogens, including Escherichia coli, Staphylococcus aureus, Salmonella species, and Pseudomonas aeruginosa. This is the conceptual framework of our study, and this was done in 2 phases. And the first phase was a systematic literature review to find out some common milk pathogens and some herbal plant that is found in Sri Lanka with non-antimicrobial activity. So caterpillar was one of the plant that was tested. So after the plant authentication, antimicrobial testing were done. In antimicrobial testing, agave diffusion assay and macro dilution assay was carried out. In agave diffusion assay, before going into the antimicrobial activity, I would like to mention how the plant root was extracted. So methanol was used as the solvent, and maceration method was used to get the plant root. After getting the plant root, we dissolved it in 10% DMSO, and a 2-fold dilution was carried out starting from 400 mg per milliliter to 12.5 mg per milliliter. Then the antimicrobial testing was done according to the CLSI method. So Muller-Hinton agar plate were used, and the respective organisms were soaked in the respective culture plates, and then 5 wells were punched in each agar plate. After that, gentamicin was used as the positive control, and 10% DMSO was used as the negative control. After that, all the concentrations and positive control, negative controls were transferred into the respective wells of the agar plates, and after overnight incubation, the zones of inhibition were observed. In macromole dilution assay, both minimum inhibitory concentration and minimum bactericidal concentration was tested. So here also we used the 10% DMSO as the solvent for the dissolvent of the plant extract, and this was done in corn tubes, and the media was Muller-Hinton broth, and 2-fold dilution of the plant extract was carried out starting from 400 mg per milliliter to 0.025 mg per milliliter. Then a standard inoculum of the respective organisms were transferred into each corn tube, and after the overnight incubation, MIC was taken. At the MIC, it was the lowest concentration that inhibits the growth of microorganisms visibly. That means for the naked eye. After that, starting from the MIC tube to the highest concentration that was tested, standard inoculums were transferred onto nutrient agar plates to test MPC. That means the actual concentration that actually inhibits the growth of respective microorganisms by the plant extract. So let's move to the result and discussion section. In the blue color, you can observe the positive zones of inhibitions we obtained for the entire organism tested. Gentamicin exhibited a zone of inhibitions ranging from 26.7 to 28.3 for entirely tested organisms. In the orange color indicate the 400 mg per milliliter caterpillar plant extract. So this concentration, that means 400 mg per milliliter concentration, exhibited a notable inhibition zones for each and every organism tested. From them, at a concentration of 400 mg per milliliter, caterpillar plant extract exhibited zones of inhibitions which closely resemble the activity of positive control gentamicin, but they were not significantly different from the control gentamicin. In the other concentrations also, that means 200, 100 and up to 12.5, we could able to get inhibition zones, but they were significantly lower compared to the control gentamicin. For Pseudomonas aeruginosa, also some activity was there at a concentration of 400 mg, but in other concentrations, that means to 150, the inhibition zones were comparatively low and significantly lower compared to the control. The least susceptible organism was Salmonella species. So only 400 mg per milliliter extract was able to inhibit the growth of Salmonella species. These are the photographs that we taken after the agave diffusion assay. In MIC, we were able to observe MIC ranging from 0.1 to 1.3 mg per milliliter, and the most susceptible organism was Staphylococcus aureus, and the least susceptible organism was Salmonella species. When it comes to minimum bactericidal concentration, the majority of MBC results were in agreement with the zone of inhibitions of antimicrobial activity, and they were ranged from 16.7 to 400 mg per milliliter. From them, as I mentioned earlier, Staphylococcus aureus, that was in the that was the most susceptible organism for the caterpillar plant extract, exhibited MBC of 16.7, and the least susceptible organism, Salmonella species, with the highest MBC, that means 400 mg per milliliter. It can only give a zone inhibition at a concentration of 400 mg per milliliter. So these are the MBC results that we obtained. And finally, I would like to mention this is only a part of our research, and after that we applied those things in milk media that to evaluate whether there is any effect to preserve these kind of organisms. So the result of the present study validated Flugia leukvirus wild exhibited comparatively high antimicrobial activity against Staphylococcus aureus and E. coli. And the preliminary observations demonstrate the effective antimicrobial activity of Flugia leukvirus wild as a natural antimicrobial agent for milk and milk products, suggesting the potential use of this extract in drugs to treat infectious illness. So these things actually we have done and we get got the results. So not only Flugia leukvirus, Bacopa monnieri, that means Urinary plant, had a good antimicrobial activity, and these two plants able to inhibit the growth of mainly Staphylococcus aureus and E. coli up to 24 hours. And now we have the toxicity profiles of these plants also. We have done the active toxicity using Brine lethality assay and assay. So in the future we are going to test the long-term effects using some higher vertebrate animal models. So this is end of my presentation, and these are the references that we used in our presentation. So finally, I would like to acknowledge my internal and external supervisors, and especially my university KIU and KDU for giving me this valuable opportunity to present in front of you, and thank you for everyone for your careful listening. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. So paper is open for discussion.
Yeah.
So 400 milligrams per milliliter, you have the effect, for instance, I think these are the highest active, right? So let's say that you have increased the concentration, let's say 600 milligrams or something. Have you actually gone home? Because
Actually, sir, we had done the toxicity profile more than 400 milligrams per milliliter. They were very toxic. We have done the Brine lethality assay and assay. No embryo was survived in that concentration. So that's why we in the previous literature they mentioned that concentration is very toxic, and we also tested for that concentration after getting that microbial activity.
So, hypothetically speaking, rather than using methanol, have you thought of using a non-polar salt?
We used 8% extract and methanol. When I submitted this abstract, I have only done the methanolic extract part. So So now we have the aqueous, the results for aqueous extractosis.
So I think you should do a non-polar solvent as well and just see, maybe you might see some improved results and just suggestion.
So in your title, I was just curious, because it says common milk pathogens, and then you mentioned like it's like preservative you can use. So which one is it?
Actually, we try to test for some other pathogens, listeria and polyfactor-like pathogens, but we were not able to coexist here. So these pathogens are also common in dairy products. So that's why we tested for these organisms.
So these are pathogenic strains that you have checked?
No, ADCC strain. And standard species is a critical isolate.
You should eat a bit of carnivore and see what it tastes like. Because if you put 4 grams of carnivore into it, then you'll be okay. Alright, thank you very much. Shall we move on to the next presentation? So the next presentation is titled a preliminary study to detect the presence of bacteria in lumbar disc herniation. It will be presented by Perera.
Hey everyone, it's my pleasure to be a part of 16th International Research Conference held by KDU University 2023. The title of my study is a preliminary study to detect the presence of bacteria in lumbar disc herniation. These are the contents of my study. Let's get into the introduction. Low back pain. I think most of us have heard about this term before. Or some of us may have undergone through these pain episodes. Low back pain needs not to have a specific cause, but less than 15% of back pain are due to lumbar disc herniation. This study pays more attention because over 80% of worldwide population have complained that they experience the back pain in some instances in their life. At the same time, this disease targets all age group from childhood to elderly. Hence, this impacts the economic status of a country vastly. The structure of the intervertebral disc comprised of 3 structurally different compartments. They are nucleus pulposus, annulus fibrosus, and end plates. In humans, lumbar series are well developed functionally as well as structurally to bear the upper body part weight. This visual shows you the healthy disc versus herniated disc, and you can see the digital diagram adhered to the MRA images. In healthy disc, you can clearly see the disc heights are normal in their height intensity and they normally align with the spinal nerves. But in case of herniated disc, you can see a part of the disc is protruded outwards and severely compressing the spinal nerves. This is called mechanical compression, and this is one of the reasons for the radicular pains. There are some factors which impacts in the development of herniated disc. Those are aging, lifestyle, occupational factors, injury, and repetitive trauma. Here are the signs and symptoms for the lower back pain which are oriented with lumbar disc herniation. These symptoms may vary with the disc pathology. Let's come into the real fact. Some studies have shown the pain and the associated symptoms are relieved by antibiotics. So, earlier we discussed that mechanical compression is one of the reasons for the development of these signs and symptoms. But if the signs and symptoms are improving by the antibiotics, then there should be a hidden factor inside the black box, right? So, when we analyzed the literature survey very deeply, it was whom? Exactly, it is due to bacteria because antibiotics can only target the bacteria. Let's see how these bacteria interfere with the association of the signs and symptoms. Herniated discs are something very dissimilar with the morphology of the normal disc. They are accumulated with bacteria and bacterial products. These bacterial products are the initiation factor for the transcription of pro-inflammatory cytokines. And these cytokines lead to the pain and the discomfort due to the nerve irritations. So we are also so curious in seeking the bacterial landscape around the herniated disc. Here is our objective, is to isolate the bacteria by conventional culture techniques in patients who undergo surgical incision for lumbar disc herniation. In our methodology, our study population includes individuals who undergo primary microdiscectomy with confirmed MRI for lumbar disc herniation. These are the exclusion criteria, and my sample size was 23. This is the culture techniques overview which we followed for our study. So we performed two types of techniques, aerobic and anaerobic culture techniques. Initially, the disc level was determined for the patients using C-arm fluoroscope, and after the antiseptic protocol, the skin scraping and the muscle biopsy were collected into BHI and cooked meat broths for the aerobic and anaerobic culture technique. We collected these as our controls because the microbial flora of the skin may interfere with the identification for the disc microbial pathogen as a contamination during the intraoperative management. This similar pathway we followed for the disc, but in addition to that, we also collected the disc part into the diaglycolate broth and homogenized using the stomacher machines. An anaerobic transient environment was created by the anaerobic glove box. Each and every anaerobic culture positives were tested for aerotolerance testing, and here you can see the facultative anaerobe was isolated. Our analysis included colony morphology recording, gram staining, and conventional biochemical tests to confirm the aerobic isolates. We strictly followed the SOP guidelines issued by College of Microbiologists. Results part. According to socio-demographic results, 65% of males were admitted for microdiscectomy oriented with lumbar disc herniation. In our culture results for aerobic isolates, none of the controls generated growth, but 3 individual discs produced 3 different pure bacterial isolates, and they were Acinetobacter species, Coagulase negative Staphylococcus species, and Corynebacterium species. These are the bacterial isolates for Acinetobacter species. Here, in the gram stain, we could be able to see the gram-negative coccobacilli in the typical honeycomb appearance. These are the culture isolates for Coagulase-negative Staphylococcus species. And here is for Corynebacterium species. In the Corynebacterium species, we could be able to see gram-positive rods aligned in the obtuse angle shape. Anaerobic culture results. 11 out of 23 discs produced the results under anaerobic incubation only, where 2 discs produced growth in both aerobic and anaerobic incubation. Among these 2, 7 discs produced growth from cooked meat subculture, 6 discs produced growth from diaglycolate subculture, and 2 discs produced growth from both cooked meat and diaglycolate growth subcultures. In discussion, 60% of the discs isolated for bacteria in our study, where 13% were aerobes. Our study was confirmed with a similar study conducted in Sri Lanka, which generated 12% of aerobes, and those were Coagulase negative Staphylococcus species. In our study, 47% of anaerobes were isolated. A similar study conducted in Western literature revealed that they could be isolated 43% of anaerobes. Our study, both anaerobes and aerobes, were 8%. At the same time, another study supports with our study revealed that they could be able to isolate 7% of bacteria under both conditions. Conclusions. Regarding our study, males are getting higher chance for lumbar disc herniation. At At the same time, our study confirmed the presence of bacteria in herniated lumbar disc. Anaerobic yields were far more high when compared to aerobic isolations. Limitation. Our study is only limited to the bacteria which can be cultivable under traditional culture methods. In future studies, we are going to process rapid ID32A kit for the anaerobic isolation from the pathogenic disc. These are my references. And I would like to convey my sincere gratitude to my supervisors and the university grant from University of Sri Lanka for the financial assistance. Thank you for the
Thank you for that interesting presentation. So it's open. Questions from the audience or from the judges?
How do you actually do this experiment? You actually isolate the pain and low back pain, right?
Yes.
So then how do you do the other activity?
So, some of the patients with lumbar disc herniation has to go with the microdiscectomy. So that means they have to be removed with the herniated disc. If not so, it will compress the nerves and it totally damages the nerves along the left part that runs through the left part.
So you're not taking out any CSF fluid or anything?
No, nothing else. Only the herniated disc, not the completed disc. Only the herniated disc will be removed at the surgery.
So I was thinking like if you see microorganisms growing in CSF, that would be dust. Okay, so you just take the herniated disc on, right? Okay, and then you actually, so what is your control then? You take skin sample
Skin
transfer,
scrapings and muscle biopsy surgeries in the same axis of the disc opening. So initially the disc level will be determined by the CR and then the same axis level controls will be collected.
So this herniation causes inflammation in the area.
Definitely, sir.
So is it the so you're mentioning that the bacteria are causing the inflammation, or because of the inflammation it gets bacterial?
Initially, sir, the bacteria are the initiators for the transcription of these pro-inflammatory cytokines. So in the herniated disc, the mRNAs for the cytokines needs to be transcripted for the activation of the cascade. So they are the initiators for the transcription of these bacterial and bacterial products.
But then the herniation itself could cause tissue inflammation, right? Because of the compressions and the mechanical.
So this is happening inside the lumbar disc and the epidural space. Within that space, it's happening.
Yeah.
Not to the tissue, other tissue levels. So once after herniation, the ongoing inflammatory things are happening inside the epidural space. So the nerves associated with the legs and other parts getting affected because of these inflammatory irritations.
Right. So the other question that came into my mind is now you're going with the traditional methods of extracting this. Wouldn't a metagenomic study give you a better picture of the microbial environment?
So definitely, this is a preliminary study, so we are targeting for the very highly advanced method to find out the bacteria which could not be cultured in the laboratory.
Yeah, because culturing you would definitely miss a few of them, right?
You
So
will
if
see
you-
the entire picture of the bacterial population. Yes, picture.
Right. Interesting.
Thank you.
So any other questions from the audience? So in the absence, we'll move on to the next presentation. So the next presentation is titled Determination of Glycemic Index, Antidiabetic and Antioxidant Activities of Palamyra, Thoracis Velifer Trickle. All right, over to you. This is presented by MRK Harvey.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Emma Khalida Parveen from KIU University. First of all, I would like to thank KDU IRC 2023 for giving me this valuable opportunity. So let's move on to our study. The study was entitled with the determination of glycemic index, antidiabetic and antioxidant activities of Palmyra, which is known as scientifically Borus flebrifer tracker. So in this slide you can see our investigators and their affiliations. So when we move on to the introduction, what do you think about diabetes and their prevalence? Yeah, you know that globally there are 463 million people that means adults having diabetes mellitus. The diabetes mellitus is a chronic disease that characterized by the high blood glucose levels. If we left unmanaged, it will treat the so many complications. And do you know about the antioxidants? What do you think about the antioxidants? Yeah, there are free radicals that will produce from our body and that will lead to the cellular damage and that will cause the so many non-communicable diseases. So these antioxidants can prevent those non-communicable diseases. And the glycemic index. What do you know about the glycemic index? That is a rating system that measures how rapidly the blood glucose will rise with the different foods that contain carbohydrates. So, according to the proper literature review, we know that treacle produced from Palmyra, that is a well-known local traditional sweetener that used in Sri Lanka. There are so many researchers that associated with their fruits and their leaves and the parts of tree, but less evidence that related to this treacle. So that we are aimed to determine the glycemic index, anti-diabetic and the antioxidant activities of this treacle of the Borus flebrifer, and we export its potential as a low glycemic alternative for individuals with diabetes mellitus. So the main general objective is to determine the glycemic index, anti-diabetic and antioxidant activities of Palmyra treacle. So there are some specific objectives. That means we determine the antioxidant activities of both aqueous and methanol extraction by using hydrogen peroxide assay and using ferric reducing antioxidant power assay, and determine the anti-diabetic activities of this treacle by using the aqueous and methanol extract by using the glucose uptake by E cells method and using the glucose absorption capacity assay. So when we move on to the methodology part, the ERC was obtained through KIU Ethical Review Committee, and the Palmyra treacle sample was collected from Palmyra Development Board, Jaffna. So this is we conduct among undergraduate students, that means the undergraduate students of KIU University. They are with the sample size of 30. So these are inclusion criteria. So they should be undergraduate of KIU University and subject between 20 to 30 years old, and their BMI range is 18.5 to 25.5. Then exclusion criteria, when we talk on them, and they should not be pregnant or lactating woman, and subject previously diagnosed with diabetes or any chronic diseases and using any medicines. Then subject with allergies to any type of treacle, and participants who did not like to eat Palmyra treacle. So this is the protocol that we follow to the glycemic index study. First of all, we give a proper information, and after that we get their consent. Then with the calculation of BMI of those participants, and we will administer the self-administered questionnaire, and after their consent, we perform the test with tested food as Borus flebrifer treacle and the glucose as the standard food. So they are carried for the research after an overnight fast, 8 to 10 hours. Then we use capillary finger prick by using a lancet at the fasting 0, 15, 30, 45, 60 and 120 minutes interval. So this was collected by that we calibrated acute check glucometer.
So with these results, we determine the incremental area under the curve of test food and the standard food, and after that we get the glycemic index and glycemic load of Perera tract. Then when we move on to the laboratory test, we prepare the plant extraction by using maceration technique for the aqueous and methanol. Then for these laboratory test purposes, we use graph pad prism software for the data analysis. So for the H2O2 free radical scavenging activity assay, we use modified methodology of Kaiser at AL 2012 and ascorbic acid use as the standard. Then the Tract assay, we use the Vijayalakshmi and Rukmani 2016. In here also we use ascorbic acid as standard. And other thing, in vitro anti-diabetic activity. So in here, glucose transpose across the cell membrane was evaluated using the Ahmed and Urosh method. So in here we use metformin as a standard. Then glucose adsorption capacity test was using the evaluation of Butker 2018 method. After that, we perform proximate analysis also for this record, because we should perform proximal composition to do the glycemic index test. Then in here we expect the titrable acidity as acetic acid. Then total sugar was determined by Lan and Eno method. So when we move on to the results part, in here you can see the age, BMI, male to female ratio, and the sample size are described as the mean and standard error. Then other thing is you can see the proximate compositions and their percentage by dry mass. So we determine the total carbohydrate, total sugar, moisture, total ash content, total protein content, and crude fiber, acidity, pH, all the things we are determined. Then in this graph you can see that glycemic response of glucose and the Perera tracker. Then this is the correlation between the GI, that glycemic index, and the gender age. So there is a positive relationship between gender and age. In here you can see the relation between BMI, height and weight of volunteer participants. They were not significantly different in height, weight and BMI of the volunteers, but we observe there is a differential with the age and gender. So this graphical presentation demonstrates that the antioxidant assay results. So with the IC50 values, both aqueous and methanol extract contain the lesser antioxidant active with IC50 values than the standard one. Then in this graphical presentation you can see that the aqueous and methanol extract also contain comparatively lower than the standard one. So this is the anti-diabetic assay test results. I think you can see it showed significantly increased glucose uptake in E cells, that means 10 to 40%, and this is the glucose absorption capacity test results. So in here there is a dose dependent response, that means with the increasement of glucose concentration there is an increasement of the absorption capacity. For the discussion, we know foods are categorized under low, medium and high GI foods. So with that we get 61.72 plus or minus 17.44 as our GI of Perera tackle. So that's categorized under medium GI. Then glycemic load is high because it gets 42. So with these results we can say it can reduce the risk of insulin resistant, weight gain and other non-communicable diseases. And then we want to mention that there are no previous research done on this topic. So other thing is, with the conclusion we can say both aqueous and methanol extract of plant exhibit
the high antioxidants and free radical scavenging activities, and the anti-diabetic activities, both aqueous and methanol extracts of treacle exhibit the good anti-diabetic activity, and we can specify these we can say this border cell proliferate treacle contain a medium GI. So this treacle is favorable screen option for individuals with aiming to manage their blood sugar level. So there are some limitations like sample size, selection of sample, methodology, environmental factors, then individuals variation in human subject also. So with the future recommendation, we are giving if we are performing with higher sample size prior to clinical use is a good thing. Then other thing, we can comprise these foods with other food groups, and long-term interventional studies also can perform because there can be evaluated chronic diseases also. Then our recommended to study the adaptability of this treacle for the diet of diabetic subject and the subject at risk who are with chronic or any other disease conditions. So there are some references that we use. So I would like to thank my main supervisors and co-supervisors and KIU University for the financial support, and Bamba and Bruce Private Limited for the grant, and thanks for your audience for listening to patiently. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that presentation. So it is open for discussion, comments and questions for Ray from the audience.
So you have taken only 20 individuals and you have concluded the conclusion. So what about diabetes patients? If you take them?
That is our future recommendation. That means we perform with the undergraduate students. So we go with thorough check, and after that we enroll the healthy persons, because first of all we want to determine whether this treacle is effect with the normal people. If that is okay, we can perform it with the diabetic patient or any other chronic disease condition patients. So after that we can conclude as that way. But with the healthy individuals, it is known as a medium GI.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, Farveen. This would definitely be a boost to our industry. Thank you very much. And we will now move on to the next presentation, which will be presented by S.H. Vikramanathan on the title Variation of Biochemical Parameters in COVID-19 Patients Admitted to Colombo South Teaching Hospital, Sri Lanka.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hasaana and I'm here to present my research on the variation of biochemical parameters in COVID-19 patients admitted to Colombo South Teaching Hospital, Sri Lanka. Let's begin by talking about what COVID-19 is. It is a positive sense single-stranded RNA virus that is known to cause mild respiratory illnesses. It was first classified as a pandemic in March 2020 by the World Health Organization due to the presence of this virus in over 200 countries. It raised a lot of issues when it was initially discovered, with problems in diagnosing and treatment. People's lifestyles were also severely influenced due to the social distancing, self-quarantine, and countrywide lockdowns, which affected people's physical, mental, and social aspects as society was introduced to new contacts. The COVID-19 virus is made up of 4 structural proteins: the phosphorylated nucleocapsid protein, the membrane protein, the envelope protein, and the spike-shaped monometric surface protein. This disease can be classified according to disease severity as asymptomatic, mildly ill, moderately ill, severely ill, or critically ill. It is transmitted through the inhalation of aerosols produced when coughing, sneezing, or talking. Previous research showed that multiple organ systems such as the liver and kidney were also affected by COVID-19 virus. Previous research on renal parameters showed the majority of patients presented with hyponatremia
and glomerular function parameters such as urea and creatinine showed a significant difference in patients with mild, normal, and severe symptoms. Previous research on liver parameters showed that both survivor and non-survivor patients presented with hypoalbuminemia, and that AST could be used as a strong predictor for the prognosis of COVID-19 patients. Most high mortality rates were detected in patients with an increased age of an average of 74 years with elevated high-sensitive troponin I levels. While doing our literature review, the gap we noticed was the lack of studies on COVID-19 done in the Sri Lankan context. Due to that, we conducted our research on the general objective, which was to identify the variations of selective biochemical investigations of COVID-19 infection in patients admitted to the Colombo South Teaching Hospital, Sri Lanka from January 2020 to December 2021. Under that, we broke down our general objective into 4 specific objectives, which was to understand the progression of the infection in liver profile parameters, renal profile parameters, and cardiac biomarkers, as well as to identify the progression of the infection in patients with diabetes mellitus, hypertension, and dyslipidemia. We began our study by gaining approval from the Internal Research Screening and Monitoring Committee at KU, followed by ethical clearance from the Ethical Review Committee at Colombo South Teaching Hospital. We conducted a retrospective cross-sectional study using the medical records of 203 patients that we collected from the bedhead tickets and laboratory information management system at Colombo South Teaching Hospital. We collected these records by filtering through our inclusion and exclusion criteria. Our inclusion criteria consisted of patients that were detected to be COVID-19 positive on admission, patients aged between 18 to 85 years of age, and we filtered patients according to their previous medical history in order to find patients with comorbidities such as diabetes mellitus, hypertension, and dyslipidemia. We excluded any patients that were detected to be COVID-19 positive after admission, along with patients with comorbidities other than diabetes mellitus, hypertension, and dyslipidemia. We collected our results using data extraction sheets, which we entered into Excel and then analyzed using an SPSS software. Here we have a graphical representation of the average trend we observed in our patients. In renal parameters, we noticed that urea and that sodium levels and EGFR levels were declined from admission to discharge in majority of our patients, while urea was elevated and serum creatinine was in the upper normal ranges. In liver parameters, we noticed that ALT and GGT were elevated from admission to discharge, while albumin was declined and AST was elevated on admission before returning to normal majority of patients by discharge. Cardiac markers such as high-sensitive troponin I and iron markers such as ferritin were also elevated in the majority of patients from admission to discharge. Next, we separated our patients into various age groups in order to identify the effect of the virus on an older population. We found that on admission, majority of patients aged 41 to 64 years presented with low sodium, and 5 to 7 days after admission, they presented with low sodium, elevated urea, and low EGFR levels. On discharge, majority of these patients presented with low EGFR. In patients over the age of 65, on admission, the majority presented with low sodium. 5 to 7 days after admission, they presented with low sodium, elevated urea, and low EGFR. While on discharge, majority of them presented with low sodium and low serum creatinine. We then compared patients with comorbidities such as diabetes mellitus and hypertension with patients that were previously healthy, and found that on admission, majority of patients across all 3 age categories presented with low sodium. 5 to 7 days after admission, previously healthy patients and diabetic patients presented with low sodium and low serum creatinine, while patients with hypertension presented with elevated urea and elevated ALT levels. On discharge, majority of previously healthy patients presented with low serum creatinine, diabetic patients presented with low sodium levels, and hypertensive patients presented with elevated ALT and low serum creatinine. In an analysis of 203 patients, the majority of patients showed a variation in sodium, EGFR, urea, and serum creatinine. The constant increase of sodium levels at all stages of the infection could be attributed to the binding of the COVID-19 virus with the ACE2 receptor present on the epithelial membrane of the kidney, which affects the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, which is responsible for maintaining water and electrolyte balance in the body. An increase in urea was also observed, which could be attributed to either the kidney damage the virus causes or as an indicator of inflammation. Acute kidney injury is believed to be a frequent complication presenting in COVID-19 patients. It plays a significant role in the outcome for patients as was indicated by majority of our research. AST and ALT were elevated in the majority of patients on admissions, but gradually the elevated results became normal or reached upper normal levels during the hospital stay. Hypoalbuminemia observed in COVID-19 could be due to pulmonary capillary leakage of albumin causing lung edema, as well as could be due to decreased hepatic synthesis of albumin caused by acute phase reaction mediated by cytokines. A formal study done by Hasaana et al. 2020 found elevated levels of AST, ALT, and GGT, along with declined albumin levels from admission to discharge in the majority of their patients. To conclude, we can state the majority of patients present with hypoalbuminemia, hyponatremia, and that there is strong positive correlation between serum creatinine and ALT, as well as correlation between AST and ALT in previously healthy, diabetic, and hypertensive patients. Some of the limitations of our study was the lack of availability of biochemical records, lack of past medical history, patients leaving against medical advice, non-survivor records being missing, and patients being transferred to other hospitals. For future studies, we can recommend studying the long-term effects in post-COVID-19 conditions, the COVID-19 effect on children, effect of ferroptosis on COVID-19, and conducting the same study in a prospective manner. Here we included a list of a few of the references we used. We would like to express a sincere gratitude to our supervisors and our lecturers at the Department of MLS and the Faculty of Allied Health Sciences, as well as the medical laboratory technologists and the medical record room staff at Colombo South Teaching Hospital. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So it's open for discussion now.
One common question: why do you see there are lots of biochemical records for this patient?
Some of them, the records are not properly maintained. Some of them they left early, so we couldn't get a proper discussion. They left against medical advice, like I stated earlier. Or some of them they didn't do specific testing. So
when you say they were not properly maintained, was it by the hospital or like?
So that we cannot say for certain, but when we were going through the medical records, we noticed some pages were missing. So we had to exclude those records.
Any other questions you would like to clarify? So your findings, so you've done this looking at data for 2 years, right? So do you see any correlations with were they actually sequenced to check which type of COVID they have?
No, sir, they did not do that.
It was just positive and then
Just positive or negative.
that's all the data that you have.
Yes, sir.
But with the waves that we had, you could kind of
We could separate them, but
yeah.
unfortunately, again, because we weren't able to tell exactly when the patients became COVID positive, we just know that when they arrived at the hospital, they were COVID positive. We weren't able to tell exactly when they were infected, so we weren't.
Because the global shift that we saw in Sri Lanka was anyways there, so you might be able to see a correlation with the biochemical data that you see, maybe. Right. All right. Any other questions that you want to clarify? All right. So in the absence of questions, we will thank the presenter and move on to the next one. So the next presentation will be done by Perera on the title Green Synthesis of Silver Nanoparticles using Silk Banana Peel Extract and their Antimicrobial Activity. Over to you.
Good afternoon. I'm Perera. Our research based on the green synthesis of silver nanoparticles using silk banana peel extract and their antimicrobial activity. You all know bananas are consumed
all the world. Sri Lanka has a rich banana cultivation, and then different kinds of Musa species can be stated as Musa acuminata, Musa valenciana, silk banana, classified as the genus Musa. And then banana peels is an agriculture-based cultivation, and it contains higher amount of phenolic compounds such as carotenoid, flavonoid, and also minerals, mostly calcium, magnesium, vitamin C, B12, like that. And also medicinal properties of peel of banana can be stated as cardioprotective digestives. And then small particles that range between 1 to 100 nanometers, known as nanoparticles. It can be synthesized using chemical, physically, and biological method. And also banana nanoparticles properties can be stated as optical, electrical, and thermal biological properties. There are so many applications of cellular nanoparticles, such as antibacterial agent, industrially, pharmaceutical industry, like that. And what we are going to do in this study, we make cellular nanoparticles using banana peel. These are the general objectives. Our main objective is to investigate the in-vitro antimicrobial activity of the biosynthesized cellular nanoparticles from silk banana, known as the cold food. And as well as some specific objectives to biosynthesize cellular nanoparticles using Musa species peel and characterize the biosynthesized cellular nanoparticles. And finally, we evaluate the antimicrobial activity of biosynthesized cellular nanoparticles. And moving on to the methodology part, these steps we use, and then we fresh banana collected and authenticated, and then banana previous studies they can use different types of plant extraction method, but in our study we use aqueous extract method, and banana was wet maceration, and then cellular nanoparticles were synthesized adding nitrate. By characterizing any type of method using scanning electron microscopy, transmission electron microscopy, and UV visible spectroscopy, and finally, according to the CLSI guidelines, we test the antimicrobial testing using AWMKK diffusion method, and finally, data analysis and interpretation using Microsoft Excel and SPSS software. And moving on to the result part, these are our results. At the beginning, synthesis of cellular nanoparticles using banana peel extract from silk banana known as cold is observed to color change. Firstly, we observe color change, yellow to dark brown. Then it confirms the cellular nanoparticles are synthesized. Then we used to UV visible spectroscopy used to identify the synthesis of nanoparticles. In our study, we observed the absorber peak around the 480 nanometer, and then we observed the also throughout the scanning electron microscope, you will see spherical shaped nanoparticles. Spherical shape and size it is like around the 49.6 nanometer, and as well the second image shows the spherical shape nanoparticles better than the scanning electron microscopy, and then energy dispersive X-ray analysis, it shows the silver is most available atom is in this solution. And then our study main thing is to identify antimicrobial activity of zero nanoparticles from using well diffusion assay. Then we use two main microorganisms, Pseudomonas aeruginosa and Staphylococcus aureus. Then we use vancomycin and gentamicin as positive controls. As well, green synthesis of zero nanoparticles display. You see, Pseudomonas aeruginosa is higher inhibition zone than the Staphylococcus aureus, and then we for extend to our study, we select another three organisms like Escherichia coli, Klebsiella pneumonia, Candida albicans, but Escherichia coli didn't show any antimicrobial activity, but Klebsiella pneumonia and Candida albicans shows the antimicrobial activity bigger than the Staphylococcus aureus, less than the Pseudomonas aeruginosa. And then move into the discussion session. Banana peel extract can be used as a natural reducing agent, like an stabilizing agent, synthesize zero nanoparticles, and aqueous extract of fresh banana peel can be considered as good antimicrobial agent. Through the result, silk banana known as Colombo reported as antimicrobial activity for selected gram-negative, positive, and fungi like Candida species, all but except Escherichia coli. And then characteristic surface pulse absorption band, SPI band, it around the 408 nanometer brown color zero nanoparticle synthesize. And then gram-negative bacteria like Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Klebsiella pneumonia, and fungi like Candida albicans show large inhibition zone than the gram-positive bacteria like Staphylococcus aureus due to their cellulose composition. Gram-positive bacteria has thicker peptidoglycan than the gram-negative bacteria. And the result of our study suggests that the synthesis of zero nanoparticles called or silk banana peel could be considered as the good antimicrobial agent selected gram-positive, negative Candida species and to treat the human diseases. And finally, throughout the result and discussion session, we finally conclude that banana peel can be used as the rapid synthesis of zero nanoparticles, and zero nanoparticles indicate antimicrobial properties against Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Staphylococcus aureus, Klebsiella pneumonia, and Candida albicans. And further studies are required to utilize those novel study to potential antimicrobial agents. And these are the recommendations we have suggested. Future studies, wide approach to characterization, study on cytotoxicity, study on many clinical strains, and combined effective antibiotic. These are the references we have used in our study. Finally, we sincerely gratitude to our external and internal supervisors, laboratory committee, and all lecturers of KIU, and Institute of Nanotechnology, Home National Herbarium, Department of National Botanical Garden, Herath, and giving this valuable opportunity to KDU, IRC 2000. Thank you.
Thank you. So the paper is open for discussion.
I have a question. So I think the selection of banana peels also matters here, right? So how you have done the selection of this banana peel here? That is for my clarification I'm asking.
Banana peel. Very much banana peel.
Yeah, selection also matters producing the nanoparticles or using the banana peels. How you have done it?
We selected 4 types of banana, but then it higher antimicrobial activity chose the Colombo, known as it banana. Then we previous studies researchers but didn't
literature
didn't do the this type research. Then I chose it.
So that your topic says the antimicrobial activity, but you have included Candida albicans also here, which is a fungus, right?
Fungus.
So why you have included that here?
This abstract and not that, but our extent studies we have chosen Candida albicans as well.
I think that question arises from you not mentioning how you have chosen banana peels, I guess, because they are of different ages and comes from different sources also, right? So the banana peels that you chose, what age are they in, or how did you actually pick them up?
Banana peel has a very high nutrient value.
Are they like from
Phenolic
ripe bananas or raw bananas, mature ones?
Mature, fresh banana.
Alright. So, because you might have to mention at which stage you need to pick the banana peels, otherwise no one can kind of replicate this kind of work, right? Because from, the potential of these peels to make nanoparticles will change with the age of the peel. Right? So that's why the question was, right? Alright, any other questions from the audience? Alright, so in the absence of questions, thank you, and we will move on to the next presentation, which is titled Comparison of Estimated Glomerular Filtration Rates given by different serum creatinine-based equations among patients with chronic kidney disease attending the teaching hospital of Brine, Sri Lanka, which is presented by HMRA Ayurvedic.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Pruti Lakshani Ambindapiti, and I am here to present our research project on comparison of estimated glomerular filtration rates given by different serum creatinine-based equations among patients with chronic kidney disease attending the teaching hospital, Colombo, Sri Lanka. First, let me give a brief introduction to our research. As you all know, kidneys are vital organs that perform several major life processes of the body. Therefore, their proper functioning is very essential to ensure good health. Then, when we talk about CKD, it's a leading public health issue. And according to KDIGO guidelines, we can define CKD as abnormalities of kidney structure or function which is present for more than 3 months period. The GFR is considered as the best indicator of overall kidney function, and its measurement plays a vital role in initial diagnosis, CKD stage determination, and patient management. Measurement of the urinary clearance of inulin is the gold standard for determining the GFR, but it is a complicated, expensive, and a lengthy process. Therefore, this period measurement is not usually performed routinely, but instead it's estimated with the help of various standard equations. Some equations are creatinine-based, then some are serum-based, while some are based on both. The 4-variable MDRT equation is the most commonly used one in Sri Lanka. But through our study, we found that there are variations among the GFR values given by different equations for the same patient, and also that the CKD stage may vary from one equation to another. Our research was conducted with the general objective of comparing estimated glomerular filtration rates given by different serum creatinine-based equations. Our specific objective was was to calculate the EGFR of CKD patients using the following equations for variable NDRD, CKD, PI, the CG formula, FAS, MCQ and BIS equation. Then to identify the variation of EGFR values among CKD patients calculated using 5 different equations. Then to identify the variation of EGFR calculated using BIS1 equation from the routine use for variable MDRD equation in patients of age 70 years and above. Now let's move on to the methodology. We conducted a cross-sectional and analytical study at the nephrology clinic of Teaching Hospital Perera during the period of October 2022 to January 2023. CKD patients registered at the nephrology clinic were used. Altogether, 205 CKD patients were enrolled. Inclusion and exclusion criteria: already diagnosed CKD patients of age about 20 years registered at the nephrology clinic, Teaching Hospital Perera were used for the study. Then we excluded CKD patients of age less than 20 years, patients with acute kidney injury or acute renal failure, then end-stage renal disease patients on maintenance hemodialysis or CAPD, then CKD patients whose routine blood collection procedure was performed with difficulty. The procedure of our research: first, the ethical clearance was obtained from the Teaching Hospital Perera. Then we recruited a total of 205 CKD patients. Then collection of demographic data was done through interview administered questionnaire. Sample collection was done for serum creatinine testing, and we did sample preparation, storage and transport. Finally, we did quality control and sample analysis were done for serum creatinine levels at the registered lab in Colombo. Then calculation of EGFR for all 205 CKD patients, we used the following 5 equations, and we considered patients about 70 years separately, and we used 6 equations. Then we determined the CKD stage based on the EGFR values calculated from each EGFR equation. Finally, we did data entry and analysis. These are the results of our study. Nearly 70% were males and nearly 30% were females. The mean age was 61 years, mean weight was 58 kilograms, and the mean serum creatinine level was 3.017 milligrams per deciliter. When talking about the etiology of the CKD population, you can see diabetes mellitus and hypertension were the predominant etiologies. Then the approximate period from the date of CKD diagnosis to the date of enrollment in the study was 1 year or less for majority of the patients, but we found only very few patients in CKD stage 1 and 2. This means that most of the patients have already reached the stage 3 by the time of diagnosis as a CKD patient. This is the estimated glomerular filtration rates calculated using the 5 equations. You can see that there are considerable variations are observed in the modes, but the means and the medians of 5 equations varied only within a small range. But later we found that there are significant mean differences among the equations. This is the EGFR for patients above 70 years. You can see that the mean was low in the CT equation compared to other equations, and there were no marked differences among the means of other 5 equations. Then we staged the CKD population, and the frequency and percentages of patients within EGFR categories can be seen here for the total 205 CKD patients, and then separately for CKD patients of age 70 years and above. Accordingly, variations were observed in the number of patients categorized under a particular CKD stage based on the EGFR equation used. For example, in the total population, you can see that no patients are indicated as stage 3-1 by the CG equations, while other all equations indicated that means a few patients under stage T1. Then a comparison of different TGFR equations using a pair sample fetus was done. We found that the EPI equation, FAS and MCQ equations showed statistically significant mean differences with the MDRD equation. Then in patients above 7 years, the BI is 1, the EPI, CT and equations showed statistically significant mean differences, but the FAS and MCQ equations did not show. Then we performed the analysis of variation by ANOVA analysis. Then it revealed that the TFR values of the same patient varies significantly among the equations included in this study. The following graphs also show that there are variations determined in the CKD stages in both total population and in patients above 70 years and above. Discussion, the male to female ratio of the population was nearly 2.5 to 1 and a similar ratio was observed in a study conducted at NHS. The highest number of CKD patients were reported from the age category of 56 to 65 years. Then next 3 points I have already discussed. And additional findings of the research, it was found that age was associated with all equations. Only the MCQ equation showed an association with the gender, and the FAS equation showed an association with the weight. Both systolic and diastolic blood pressure showed a strong positive correlation with serum creatinine levels of the population. The conclusion of our study is that the CKD stage of a patient must not vary based on the equation used. This study provides evidence for the deviations among the equations in GFR estimation and stage determination. Accordingly, it can be concluded that there is a necessity of developing an EGFR equation for our population, or at least modifying and adapting EGFR equations to suit the Sri Lankan population. These are the limitations and recommendations. We could not include the serum cystatin C-based equations due to unavailability of resources. Then this was limited to Bandara district, and also this study did not involve the actual measurement of TFR, so we were not able to study on the accuracy. The presence of only a small number of stage 1 and 2 patients. As recommendations, further study can be conducted using the large CKD population, and also including serum cystatin C-based equations. And the major recommendation is the gold standard measurement of using Inoka clearance can be performed, and EGFR equations can be modified and adapted to suit the Sri Lankan population. These are the references. I would like to sincerely thank our external supervisor, internal supervisor, our department, and also the entire staff of the teaching hospital, Urinary. Thank you.
Alright, thank you for that nice presentation. So, just a little scared to see the variations in the numbers. Let me open the floor for questions by asking how would those numbers affect the treatment and the diagnosis process by the patients?
So in CKD patients, there is renal dose adjustments of drugs are decided based on the CKD stage. So now in Sri Lanka, MDRD equation is the commonly used one, but now we can see with equations used in other parts of the world that there are variations. So we cannot say that we cannot say it's 100% accurate the use of equations, because we are not performing the actual measurement in clinical stages.
But when you report, would you tell how it was calculated? Like, in the report it says how it was calculated, right? So then would it affect the clinical outcome or the treatment regimes?
So that means in order to get the accurate GFR, we need to perform like clearance, either creatinine clearance or some kind of exogenous substance we have to use for that. But because of the high cost and complicated citizen accuracy of the equations.
Any other questions from the audience?
So if you want to adapt this one to Sri Lankan community, so of course as you mentioned the cost is a big problem, right? So what is the suggestion then, like that you of course you want to make some sense. So if you use the same formulas which were developed for other countries, so which is not definitely applicable for us, right, at this moment. So what would you suggest, like, so you want to adapt something to Sri Lankan population or at least for South Asian population, how would you propose something? What should be changed in those parameters?
So now I think we have to do a large scale research, including the clearance, measuring the clearance using some exogenous substance, like there are non-isotopic substances we can inject externally, and then like we can measure the real TFR, actual TFR, and then we can develop an equation using the Sri Lanka population, which reflects much similarity with the actual TFR.
So when they initially developed these formulas, so I'm assuming they must have looked at the cost as well, right? Isotopes and things, they must have used it for a purpose, right? So maybe it is more accurate,
Yes.
right? So let's say that if you use something else which is less accurate, then wouldn't it affect this reporting again?
Sorry, sir?
So let's say that we are going to propose something which is less accurate, like based on the cost. So wouldn't that really affect the actual reporting again? Like, so rather than, let's say that, so they must have used these isotopes for a reason, right? So probably it gives you real, proper, accurate measurements, I'm assuming. So let's say that if you want to suggest something again, so which is cost effective and less costly and highly accurate, then I'm assuming they must have proposed something, right, in these proposals. Have you gone through those?
Yes, sir. In Sri Lanka, like no large-scale studies have been done. Like, I mean, we can perform the gold standard method and then do a large-scale research, and then from that we can develop an equation to suit our population. Because such adjustments have been done in other countries, but it's not so in Sri Lanka because of the high cost taken into it, such a large-scale research. So if we can do such a big research and find out an equation which is much suitable for our population, then it will be cost effective.
Alright, any other questions, comments? If not, so that was our last presentation of the day. So if you have any general comments about today's presentations, you're open to discuss them. If there's anything that you want to ask any of the specific research teams who are present here, especially from the students. Anything that you want to ask them. So we have seen a number of, so the initial half of our session was quite dedicated to natural products and their effects. And it was coming from a biodiversity-rich country. So we have so much of natural resources that we can actually venture into. So it's a very nice start, and I hope you will continue these research projects further in order to find something that we can actually bring up to the industrial level. And then we see most of these studies that we saw today are looking at actual problems that are there in the country. Most of live questions that the research teams have asked. So they have done a wonderful job in, especially in mentoring these students into completing these research projects. So we should applaud the mentors who have guided them. And also finally I would like to thank Dr. Lethality and Dr. Sedara for judging these presentations, so we will hear the results of that in a little while. So this concludes our session for the evening, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause to all the researchers who presented their work here. Their contributions have not only expanded our knowledge, but also sparked important discussions and opened new avenues of investigations. And now, I would like to cordially invite the chairperson of the session, Professor Inoka Perera, to give away the certificates to the presenters. CGT Sanchethana, JIMK Ilangage, JMKDB Jayasuriya, P. Arvind, M.R. Khalida Farvin, S.H. Vikramaratna, V.L. Aberatna, LHMRL and Lipidea, Thank you, sir, and please remain on stage to award the plaques for our panel of judges. To our distinguished panel of judges, we extend our sincere thanks for your dedication and expertise in evaluating the research presentations. And now I invite the judges to accept the token of appreciation. Dr. Amila Abesegara, Senior Lecturer, Department of Pharmacy, Faculty of Allied Health Sciences, General Surgeon, Kottala Defense University. Dr. Niroshima Vithanage, Senior Lecturer, Department of Medical Laboratory Sciences, Faculty of Allied Health Sciences, University of Sri Lanka, Perera. Thank you, sir. I would like to express our deep appreciation to our esteemed chairperson, Professor Inoka Perera, for the invaluable guidance and leadership throughout this event. Your commitment to maintaining the flow and ensuring the smooth progression of sessions has been helpful in creating a conducive environment for scholarly discussions. And next, I would like to call upon the head of the Department of Medical Laboratory Sciences, Dr. C.B. Ranavira, to award the plaque to the chairperson as a token of appreciation. Thank you, sir. And now we have reached the end of the successful session. And before we wind up, I'd like to take a moment to extend my sincere gratitude to all of you for making this research conference a resounding success. First and foremost, a heartfelt thank you to Professor Inoka Perera, our esteemed chairperson, and the distinguished panel of judges for taking their valuable time to participate in today's session. Thank you very much, military officers and academic staffs of the department, and each and every one of you who shared your research with us today. Your hard work, dedication, and passion for your respective fields have enriched this conference, and we are grateful for your valuable contribution. Last but not least, I want to express our appreciation to the attentive and engaged audience who have been with us throughout this session. And with that, we will conclude the technical session of the 16th International Research Conference of the Department of the Medical Laboratory Sciences, Faculty of Allied Health Sciences, General Surgeon for the Laval Defense University. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now we have come to the end of the technical sessions of Faculty of Allied Health Sciences, 16th International Research Conference of General Surgeon for the Laval Defense University 2023. I would like to invite Dr. UTIs Senarathna, Senior Lecturer, Secretary of International Research Conference 2023, to award the certificate to the best oral presentation of the Faculty of Allied Health Sciences session titled In-vitro Antimicrobial Properties of Plant Mixture Against Common Microbial Strains Causing Urinary Tract Infections and Cytotoxicity. Determination using Brine shrimp lethality assay. Name JIMK. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem.
Sri Lanka Mata, Upper Sri Lanka, Namo, 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 Namo Mata. Sundar Siri Barini, Surati Akisobamana Lanka.
Cordial invitation is for all. Join for the refreshments, which is set up in the cafeteria. Thank you. Have a nice evening.